Hey everyone, this is Reba Hass of Team Reba and the radio show and podcast Open House of Team Reba. And it is Tuesday, July 21st. I've got a little bit of a sore throat because I haven't had a lot of sleep lately. Many of you know I had a kind of a scary event this last weekend with my dog having a flipped stomach, which was something I knew about, but didn't realize golden retrievers suffered from on occasion. But anyway, Rusty's doing great. For those of you who are friends of mine here on Facebook and seeing some of my posts, he's doing great. But I am keeping a very, very close eye on him. Other things that we're keeping a close eye on, though, is what's going on in the real estate market. So many of you know from the live updates that I have been doing with Eric Osnes, my co-host of Open House with Team Reba. We've been watching since the beginning of kind of the coronavirus impacting the markets and just, everything in general, of course. We've been watching what's happening with the sales, transaction count, what's happening with financing and all of that. And because there's always a lot of fear around, well, that usually means a good thing for mortgage rates. So they continue to be really, really good. And that's showing up in how frequently people are doing transactions now. So I'm going to show you a couple of comparisons today, just so we can kind of get that out there, because it's been doing exactly what Eric and I have been talking about for the last couple of months now. And I'm going to express that to you here in real numbers with the historical elements that we've been doing here. I know it's super fancy with me and my little whiteboard, but this is from April 3rd. And April 3rd, the 7-day market watch, because we were going into shutdown for a brief period of time being non-essential, we had at the time pending, 1,850 transactions. Sold was pretty close to that. Not a lot of new listings because we're down at 1337, right? Back on market, price reductions were at 507, price increases at 125. Now, we continue going on every Tuesday and Friday after that, and we start seeing some trends. Good gosh, this thing's going to blow all over on me, sorry. But here's the thing. Sure enough, new listings went down because now we couldn't do anything. We were in shutdown mode. Back on market also went down, which was expected. Price reductions already started to increase because we know some people are like, oh crap, we need to get this place sold. And maybe we've missed the mark or we're concerned what's going to happen. Pendings went down, but that's because nobody could get out, right? Numbers of solds were continuing to stay relatively stable, partly because we had 17,000 transactions already in process when this all happened, right? So these are some of the rates that were going on. VA was at 2.75, conventional was running between 3.25 and 3.375 at the time. So our pendings went down a little bit. Then we went to April 21st. Rates were doing really, really well. Jumbos started going above 4% at that time because, again, markets kind of freaked out. Jumbos considered a riskier loan for the lenders, and those are what are called a portfolio loan. So usually the bank that creates that loan holds it in their portfolio, meaning within their asset base. They don't sell it on the secondary market in most cases. So we started seeing some reaction in the higher risk categories, right? April 24th, we had almost the exact same rates going on. We ended up having conversations about what was impacting the jumbo market, and higher down payments were now being required. Higher reserves were being required, meaning like, what do you have in the bank after you close, right? Because they want to make sure you had more than enough to be able to handle if suddenly a job disappeared or what have you, or an illness happened and now you couldn't work, right? Now we went into May. Because now we're back to limited essential. At this stage, we're starting to open up also the other people who support the real estate industry. The financial sector had been going the whole time, right? They knew they still had to keep things happening there. And again, we've mentioned this before, the real estate and finance industries combined, and all the ancillary services around that are about 17% of the gross domestic product. So this is a huge sector of the economy, right? So thankfully, this was still kept open and people are responding, not just in purchases, but the refinance market also went just crazy because now we saw rates that were even lower than when we were at the end of the housing crisis from 2007 to 2010. Now, I know that I talk about that time period as a longer period than most people, but that's because Eric and I, we were even talking at that point, August 2nd, 2007 is when we saw everything go into free fall. So we've been watching really closely what's happening here. Because remember, interest rates back in 2007 at that point were like at 5.5%, 6%. So compare that to where we are today, May 15th. 15-year loans were at 2.75. FHA and VA was at 2.75. Conventionals at 3.25, and jumbos were at 4.25. Still great in comparison, right? Again, fear affecting the market, and the Fed also intervening to make sure that things didn't go to hell in a handbasket, right? But now we have, okay, now we're over 2,000 new listings a week, right? We're at 2236 at that stage. Pendings have now also been continuing to climb. So at this stage, we're at 2939. Now we're at 3182. Back on markets, you know, people who needed to do adjustments, that's fine. Interestingly enough, the solds went down, but that's because now we're about a month past that timeline in April where we had the shutdown. So we expected to see this. Okay, we expected to see that. Price reductions, though, you can see how it kept growing a little bit, 765 to 890 here, right? Then mid-May, same thing. We've got more pendings going up to 3474. You guys are probably wondering where I'm going with all this. Saw about the same on price reductions. Going into June. Into June, at the beginning, we had 2,370 new with 3,756 pendings. So these numbers are getting bigger. Now I'm going to do a little thing where I go to share screen here, guys, because I've done it on these before. And I want you to see where we're at literally as of today and this moment. So you're currently looking at what is the market watch. You can also see some names of my clients, but this market watch on the left-hand side of my screen, new listings, we're still only at 2031, right? Not a big change. In fact, actually maybe even a little bit down than some of the other weeks. But look at this number. The listing pending, 4,204. Earlier today, because this is based on a 7-day average, as we shifted into the regular workday today, as of this morning, that was actually at 4384. So 4204 for the last 7 days for the entire Northwest Multiple Listing Service. There's a lot of people out hot and heavy in this market, and we have mentioned over and over again the number of people that were having multiple offers, or competing within those multiple offers, or the listings that are there that have them. And let me just also point out, it's not just when they're brand new on market. Sometimes it takes a little while for some stuff to come around if it's a more unique product. And we had that happen with our listing in Port Orchard. We ended up with 3 offers competing after being on the market for 3 weeks. So, don't think you get too complacent and just only find something that's been on market longer than 2 weeks and think you have a total shot at, doing a low ball. You never know who else is out there, because a lot of people are seeing these rates and they're jumping into the market, and you're going to potentially run into some competition. Why does that matter? Well, you want to make sure who you're talking to, who's working with you, is an agent who's staying on top of it, calling, asking questions. I want to give you a little snippet of some of the stuff that ends up happening. We had a client who was very interested in a house that I showed last night. And I ended up, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I ended up going to show the property to them. We had one of the other staffers on our team, Rick Hayes, was doing his job, and he was calling the listing agent, getting information as much as he possibly could to help us, with our client and their negotiation if they were going to try and jump in. And that agent was sharing the terms of all the other offers, which of course then led to the conversation with my client of, we don't want to write your offer yet, because they were looking at them 5 o'clock today. We had already started talking about, do we want to get a pre-inspection? Because we already knew no other offer had a pre-inspection involved. We were looking at what other advantages could we possibly get on this? What were the ultimate terms? We talking to the lender about the timing to get closed. So, anything and everything that might give our client the benefit. And so the discussion was, no, you don't want to go ahead and put your offer in right now because this guy's clearly vomiting up whatever he's been given to anyone else who calls. And, good on him because he's doing the job of trying to help his seller get the best deal. But here's what I'm also going to tell you. That house had hyperactivity on it. And that same client had actually just lost out. They're actually in a backup position on another property in Federal Way. And, we don't wish ill will on anyone, but just in case something falls apart on that deal, we want them to be in second position so they don't have to go back on market. We can just slide right on in, right? Go under contract. But they have the right to continue looking. And this house I showed them last night, wasn't nearly as nice and was starting to creep up in the same price point. And I will say my client pointed out they had, as they put it, cheated on me over the weekend and asked another company to show them a house because I happened to be taking a couple of days off. And they regretted that, partly because here's the difference. The house that they put a backup offer on or competed very strongly with, and there were multiple pre-inspections on that. That particular property was rather pristine. No house is perfect, but it was great. Really, really great condition. And I was able to help them identify that even before they spent the money on the inspector, right? And I have to be careful. I'm not an inspector, I just have seen literally tens of thousands of homes. They told me about their experience with this other person from a well-known local firm. And they said it was night and day. They asked questions about, to protect themselves. Should I get a sewer scope? This guy said, oh, nobody does that. Baloney. They do it all the time. In fact, one of his colleagues just did it on one of our listings in a pre-inspection. So I call BS. They also, they were asked, well, what about this house should I not like? And the guy's like, oh, this house is great. I was at the house last night and immediately was able to identify second roof, should be at end of life based on age. The water heater was manufactured 2011, and it's an original furnace. The house was built in 1976. So what do we have? $20,000 worth of work due in the next 5 years on this house, and they want to pay a premium for it? You have to get really, really honed in on what's important and know where your finances stand, because they were about to go outside of their comfort level on this price point for a house that was nowhere close to the one they have as the backup. So we would rather continue just looking and not pay for that pre-inspection and not even go to bat on this house, because another strategy was to say, well, do your inspection, and then what we'll do is we'll base your price on that, which we're pretty sure these things are going to come up anyway, and those are the biggest dollar items. And then, at least what we get to have as our competition is to say, but your deal's not going to fall apart from the inspection. You get all these people running up on their price points. They're going to expect that you get to needle them on the price during negotiations on the inspection process. So we can't suggest enough that you do good quality research on the person you're working with, that they understand these types of things and can guide you through. Does that seem maybe a little backward? I'm teaching you how to do that so you know how to interview other people. Yeah, could you just hire me? Yes, you could. But many of you already know agents that you like and trust, or might end up meeting somebody, or you're not even in my area. That's the other thing. I'm talking about this stuff because most of what I'm discussing right now applies across the nation. These are tips that anybody can use to make their experience in real estate better. If you're going to design your life, and your real estate's going to be part of that, so we're now calling it redesign your life, you need to really understand the most important things and make your buying decisions on those rather than strictly emotion. You can use your brain and your heart at the same time. It is possible. So I'm going to finish up because my neighbor Klaus apparently has come out and decided to be part of the show. So you guys take care, and I'm going to go calm Rusty down right now. Take care. Bye.